Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 is one of the best racing games ever made. Even though it is inferior to modern racing in terms of graphics, a variety of models, tuning and other things, it's still fun to play on stationary consoles and computers. But along with a normal Most Wanted on large consoles, another Most Wanted also came out on a small console, namely the PSP, called Most Wanted 510. These three numbers can be considered a graduation of ratings that the game would have been given at the beginning of the game, in the middle, and the end, respectively. But we won't get ahead of ourselves. First we subscribe to our channel and when to start this game from the very beginning. The game starts with exactly the same intro in the main game, letting us know, or to be more precise, deceiving us as suckers, so that we think that this is the same game on the launch platforms. And to be honest, in the 2005, when I was 9 years old, that would have been enough for me to believe. But now I'm not 9 anymore, so fuck you motherfuckers. By the way, this is the only cutscene in the whole game, which could be justified by the fact that this disc for the PSP, there was not enough space for this beauty. But the joke is that the ROM of this game weighed 910 megabytes. While the maximum disk size is 1.8 gigabytes, which means they didn't put those scenes is just because they didn't give a fuck. Immediately after that scene, we are greeted by the main menu, in which you can hear all the same music as the original game, the quality of which, as it seems to me, is exactly the same as there. Everything is loud, beautiful and cool. But there is quite a bit of music here, because empty 900 megabytes of the disk would not be enough to add all the rest of the music. And therefore, I now perfectly know the answer to the question what was in the hood, my hood. But on the other hand, thank you so much for leaving my favorite Disturb. It's nice to listen to them even for the millionth time without a break. After the intro, we were told to come up with the name of ourselves as well as age and hometown. I never found the answer to the question why the fuck and why, because neither my age or my city is displayed anywhere in the whole game. For a change, I decided to take a Mazda 3, which was not in the main game. And it would seem that the game should be praised for the fact that it does everything not one by one to the original, but brings something new. But at least a couple of new cars is cool. In general, we have 16 cars to choose from. From the race selection menu, we just start going out to blacklist, not understanding at all why we need to go through this list and what the hero has a goal. Because in addition to the cutscenes, the developers did not even bother to even write a text description on why online something like your car was stolen and you have to go through the whole list to get it back to you. Then go over to a life decision that led you to buy BMW. The mini cutscene before the start of the race looks just disgusting, as static camera switches from one car to another to the sounds of guessing at that it. As soon as the race started, I instantly felt how uncomfortable the handling was, which no longer resembles the original Most Wanted, where the control was smooth, responsive and pleasant, but the 2012 Most Wanted, which was from the same as here. And the delay between pressing the button and the reaction to the cars, and how the car reluctantly events to turn, and how it constantly skids. Of course you can get used to this, but why, when you can have fun a normal game with normal controls? This is me running a little ahead. Before you start driving, the car starts, and judging by the way it starts, its engine is from Ford Model B, because I even get under faster by Zhiguli. But even though the controls are clumsy, and even though I took the weakest car in terms of performance, throughout the race I was still in the first place and could easily pass the first time. And it would seem that it is good when the bad game is simple. Quickly passed, turn off and forgot. But be patient a little. I will return to the difficulty and balance a little later. On the other side of the chart, if they show me this footage saying that this is Most Wanted on PS2, I probably would be able to believe it. It looked like a game in 2002 on the second PlayStation. They even brought in this color correction, which I like to call someone piece in Adobe Premiere Pro, and so the traces of urine were incompatible, he shit a little on top. But even though the game visually resembles a full-fledged Most Wanted, the tracks here were created completely from scratch, or to be more precise, were stolen from the second Underground. Maybe not all, but some for sure. There is no open world now, there is a set of tracks and that's it, which are also repeated so often that I managed to remember some of them by heart. And now at the expense of the second PlayStation, on which the original game was released. Of course I understand that handheld is weaker than large console, but if you skillfully take up optimization, then it would be quite possible to transfer a full-fledged Most Wanted to the handheld, maybe trimming the effects, resolution and something else a little thin, and I wouldn't say this if there wasn't a third Midnight Club, which on portable is the same slightly trash polished game, or GTAs or much more, against which this game looks from far fallacious light. But despite the fact that the graphics of the game are beautiful, the text, even with upscaler, is fucked up. I was only able to read what they write to me about the result of the race somewhere in the middle of the game, and then not all and not always. And how to read on a small PSP screen, also with a resolution 5 times lower, is generally scrappy to imagine. Now, by the way, music is playing in the background, which in theory should play during the chase with the police in order to create additional tension. This is because the music here is just fucking thrown into the game, and all of it plays when it pleases, regardless on the context. And sometimes even half of the race in silence can pass, why not? Almost immediately we were introduced to local police, the chase with which feel pretty epic. But these policemen are fucking cheaters. Firstly, no matter how I knock them down, I won't be able to crash their car. Secondly, no matter how fast and no matter how mega fast car I drive, this fucking Crown Victoria will constantly in front of me. And even if it hits somewhere, even if I get a fast car, even if I turn a nitro and overtake him for a while, after 30 seconds he will back and stand in front of me. And given how crooked the physics of our car here and how aggressive the cops are, his hit in the side of the barrel can provoke my car to fly in a distant galaxy, or at least face the wall. And one more thing about the cops. Why did they change the color from black to blue, and why didn't they change the color of the cars of the barriers in the same way? What is the point of putting up barrier of piece of road, leaving the intruder with a huge space to go around? Since this is a Most Wanted, it certainly has a technical and visual upgrade of the car. Of course, also tranched, because of which here, unlike the beat game, I won't be able to drive the whole game on one car, improving its characteristics. 2-3 bosses and the first car will become useless. Visually everything is also not very interesting. A couple of spoilers, bodies, wheels and hoods, very low resolution vinyls and tinting. After a couple of cars I found that I was doing the same thing all over again. It would be better if this misunderstanding was cut out instead of videos. Racing modes have also been trimmed. This is despite the fact that this is the original Most Wanted. They cut out a bunch of everything that was in underground. It is all set here. The race with rivals is regular and relegated, the race against time, the tournament, which essentially 3 races glued together, the chase with the police, and seems to duel. These are all the modes on this game has, and each of them takes place on circular track. Absolutely everything here happens on the circular track. In a time trial, if you run out of time, no one will interrupt the race, because when you have 0 seconds left, you still have time to reach the finish line. Here is the race against the time. We can talk about the balance of difficulty. As I already said, it is quite possible to complete the rivals here, not even the fastest car. At the same time trials are impenetrable from the word can't. Until you pump out your car to the maximum possible, you don't even have to middle here, and it will be also through the game. Only a little later, the most blunt noses track designs will be added to the complexity, when there are more turns by 90 and 180 degrees than on the faults of your former and future goals. In the original Most Wanted, I remember I cursed such a crooked turns only a couple of times. Then half of the fucking game consists of this. Here everything is with the same swearing, but it's almost impossible to drive along the noses without hitting the wall of stroke braking or trying to drift, which will lead to skid with further bullshit to the wall. As a confirmation of the curvations of the roads, you can take the bosses who hit everything constantly more often than you. As soon as I put nitro on my car, I felt how uncomfortable it was to press the cross to drive while holding circle for nitro. And also at the end of the day, I realized that throughout the day, from morning to evening, holding the X button with your finger is very unhealthy for your finger. When using nitro, by the way, there is no animation of the exit or fire from the exhaust pipe or least exit on the laser beams from the headlights and in main game. Did an accident happen? Need a lawyer? Better call Saul. Better yet, make the controls of the game fucking normal. When chasing the police or even just when the rivals driving somewhere nearby, the camera zooms out of the car so that I have a better view, and then zooms back when no one is around, which creates a bit of cinematic. The battle with the first boss began, in which I noticed that the battle with them are much easier than all the other races, except for one unique count, about which later. And having reached the end of this race, I also noticed that this race is only one, and as a result I receive only money as a prize. Boss car will appear in the store, but I will have to buy it, and when I buy it, it will be with standard factory body kits and coloring. And even taking into account the fact that I had to constantly buy new cars and upgrade for them, I still had quite a lot of money that I had nothing else to spend on, and I didn't even pass every race. Not every, but all almost every. There is plenty of money, but with the reputation that is needed to open the boss, everything is not so rosy. It's getting slower and slower with every boss. After defeating the boss, we are offered to go through the bonus race, as a result of which they will not give us any money or respect, but they will give us spare parts for the car. Not those to increase technical characteristics, but those that are visual, and hidden so well that I could not even fight them. Of course, I only went through a couple of these bonus races, maybe they would give something better further, but having received some useless garbage of the final races, I somehow didn't want to spend more time on this. After the end of the race, if you have the maximum wanted level, you are offered to additionally run away from the persuasion, earning a little more respect. In case I can't escape, I will be arrested and whole race will have to go through a new one. And just look at the ratio of the points that I earn for the race and the points that they offer me for additional chase. The only thing I way to say this, fuck you with such a bonuses. This running away from the police, by the way, is rather strange thing. Judging by scale above, I seem to be successfully running away from them, but if you look at minimap, they were at what distance from me, they remain at that, and even when I completely run away from them, they will still be somewhere nearby, just apparently forget they were persuading me. Well, if I do not have time to escape from them a lot of time, they will write to me that I have been arrested, even though I kept going. Who, where, how arrested me, I still do not understand. Yes, and this running away is still happening on the same tracks as the race, because I am instantly exiting the same race, but already without rivals. And in case I get arrested in these extra chases, or just in the middle of the race, we will not be shown any scene of the arrest, and even the car will not be confiscated, which would serve at least some motivation to spend all the money earned. And the game cannot decide in any way which system it wants to measure the distance. On the speedometer we have miles per hour, on this scale we have meters. The damage system also fell under the proven, which of course was quite primitive even in big game, but here nothing was left at all. Even some of the most common scratches could not be realized. Sometimes these arrows on the side, albeit not too much, are disoriented. In this case, if I believe this arrow, I will go straight to the wall. On the second boss you can see that some of them were given new cars, wrapped around with the vinyls that they had in the main game, and which here quite often look just ugly on other cars. And in general, if you could allow put only 16 cars into the game, why not add exactly those that the bosses had? Also, during the battle with the bosses, all the police completely disappear from the city, because apparently when the 4 cars drive is dangerous, and when there are only 2 it is normal, let them gank. What stopped me here? The most ingenious police fence in the history of mankind. Somewhere on the edge where you can only go by chance. One of the few modes in the race against the police where you are required to reach the certain wanted level in limited time. In a game where this level of wanted almost from the very beginning of the race rises to the maximum. Yes, very hard task. If I drive a small selection without crashing into anyone, my wanted level will drop. This is how it works. Drive at any speed or even opposite lane, even on a sidewalk, the main thing is not to crash into anything and the police will not touch you. No matter how intrusive the local police are, they are just as intrusive in the relation to my rivals. Besides the fact that R constantly creates obstacle for them, they can also arrest them, which will make the race much easier for me. But even if the police arrest my rivals and I'm alone in the race, I still have to get the finish line, even though it is already clear who win. And sometimes it takes quite a long time to get the finish line, because sometimes the races here are terribly long, which is not very good, especially for a portable game. While you pass on the race, you will miss your stop on the bus and have to go in the opposite direction. And if you get a long race this time, you can generally forget that you need to get up there, you will sit in this bus and pass this fucking most wanted until you run out of travel money. Wherever I drive, even in the ass of the policeman, he will still drive forward, thinking that I'm going somewhere, instead of standing still so that I crash and stop. Why did this civilian decide to crash into a fence, and why was this driving opposite direction, I could not understand. Well, it's not just the civilians here who have intelligence, clear vision. Well, either they all have like me crooked oblique control with delay, and they like me simply did not have time to turn the side in the time. Question to the engineers who built this road. What was the problem in making it straight? Why go straight when you can go left? This civilian was so inspired by our races that he decided to drift a little himself. If suddenly a fast opponent is riding in front of you, whom you cannot overtake, do not worry. Sooner or later he will definitely slow down so that you can overtake him. Whatever car is driving behind you, it is rear view mirror, they will always look the same. I don't know what kind of orgy they have going there, but I want to participate in it. I am not sure that machines can do this. There is a Porsche in the game, but Baron still decided to get into the the car with jewels, which in turn sits on Audi TT from the undercover. Was it possible to fuck even harder with the boss car? We'll see. If a car does not want to crash into another car, it will not crash into another car, even if it crashes into another car. And if the car wants to drive only in its own lane without going to Omnius lane, then it will drive in own lane without going to the oncoming lane, even if for this you have to drive into the barrier. In task with a set of wanted levels, I definitely needed to exactly along the road and exactly one direction. If I turn around, the game will say that it is so bad and fail my mission. At least it doesn't matter where to go. If it's not a race, it is entirely clear. If a policeman wants to pick up speed during a sharp turn, he will pick up speed no matter how stupid it looks. Admittedly, also the owner of the establishment is not very rosy with the imagination. At least by the sign you can immediately understand what awaits you inside. The race with Earl take place in the same track as the race with previous boss. They were too lazy even to put her back in front. When I bought Elanos, I mean Lancer, I already had some modifications open to purchase. This time nothing was open. How does the system work and why does it work like through the S? Of course, I understand that this is too hard to draw a 3D model inside the car, but a two-dimensional black silhouette cannot be completed to the end. It's certainly strong. Why did my tires bleed when I drove over the piece which has no thorns? And how could he even ride so slow on top of such a tall object? I think someone fucked up with the size of this car. A little advice to the driver in a blue car. If there is a barrier in front of you and you crashed into it and the car pushes you from the other side, you don't need to continue driving forward, but ideally drive back at all. Somewhere by the middle of the game, the tracks became so crooked that I have to start using the game dilation in order to at least somehow enter the turns. There was no revelation, this showdown is exactly the same oblique as everything else in this game. When you press the slow down button, time starts to slow down after about 2 seconds, during which you will definitely have time to slosh. A little later I learned to simultaneously press the deceleration button to the brake button with a turn, and only in this case did I have managed to change either turn without vibrating. If the enemy car wants not to hit the fence in front of it, then it will not hit the fence in front of it, even if for this you have to turn all 4 wheels to the right by 90 degrees. I just went through a big tournament consisting of 3 long races, for which I was given, in addition to money and reputation, absolutely fucking nothing. Thank you, very useful time spent. I just went over the speed limit in empty tunnel where are no police or civilians. Who the hell denounces me from the police? Remember, policemen, if you pretend to acrobat on the road, then in the end you will definitely hit something. This is called friendly fire. Or car sex involving 2 male cars. Most Wanted fucks. I used to watch porn with that name. Revisiting the intro, you can also pay attention to the police Corvette Cross, which went into oblivion along with the usual Corvette, which is also silent in the game. They clearly wrote to me here in Scribble Doodles that I have a technical upgrade available. Where is he available? Most likely their upgrade were open to the other machine. But why the hell do I need upgrade to another machine if I still don't have everything open to mine? I bought myself a new car, which after pumping had more characteristics than my last Audi TT. But when I got out on the road in new car, I immediately felt that this Corvette, also better in terms of numbers, rides much worse than my last one. Or they just fuck the physics, or they just put a fuck on the study of this machine. Hector decided not only to steal car from Baron, but also took his coloring at the same time. At that moment I thought of finishing the old races from past bosses, so that I would be easier to gain reputation. And also these races are much easier than those that follow, they give me as much respect for passing them as for hard ones. Please welcome the boss named Ronnie. Yes, that's right, this is not the final boss racer, for which we went through the list. This is some random dude, and after defeating him, it became interesting to me why the hell did the main character go further down the list to make his way if he already got his car. By the way, about this car. Firstly, it has very few leveling options, both technical and visual. Secondly, I received the BMW without coloring, so I tried to make this coloring with my own hands. Do not judge me strictly, it seems to me almost 1-to-1. If you don't think so, that you're just jealous. And thirdly, the sound of this car is not just like the sound of BMW, but rather like steroid pumped mosquito flying around my room. And here is what the car of final boss looks like. Yes, this is exactly the same BMW as that boss, not only in different ugly paint jump, because 16 cars were not enough for each of the 15 bosses to have a separate car. In the loading screen of Razor's race, you can see his real car, which is nowhere to be found in this game. Of course, there is car itself, but it is nothing to do with Razor at all. And this is just the same as very unique boss that I spoke about at the beginning. All the bosses before were so simple that I was able to pass each of them the first first time. I drove with the same car for probably 45 minutes, and it's not even that his car is better than mine. The fact that he is fucking cheater who, even after serve accident, where he turned 720 degrees, instantly returned to my ass and quickly overtook me. I tried 4 different fully pumped cars, and in the end somehow managed to defeat him. After that, they told me that the race was over. They gave me money and they didn't even show me a congratulations screen to the end. Final race done, and all you need is. After that, having climbed a little in the menu, I stumbled suddenly on the invitation, namely the mode in which I can play as a policeman and catch other racers, which is pretty cool, and I missed this in the main game. Here's what to say about this game. Back in 2005 when it came out, if I had a PSP then, I would have pissed with delight playing with my favorite race instead of walking up a drunk gym teacher from the back room so that we could start a lesson already. But now it's not 2005 or even 2007 anymore, and in portable mode you can play not only the normal Myst Wanted, but also cooler and newer racing games. Therefore some nitpicking might have been irrelevant at the time, but now this game has to compete with the one that fuck it in all directions with all possible methods. As for me, this game out of time does not represent any value at all, except the value of the museum exhibit. Download the emulator of a second PlayStation or GameCube on your phone or by Steam Deck, and here's Myst Wanted for your buzz. But before you run to the emulator stand and get it high, subscribe to our channel, like and repost this video.